Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I'm really honored to have Rick Williams, and we're going to be talking about his new book, Create the Future, Powerful Decision-Making Tools for Your Company and Yourself. And we'll dig into that in more detail. Rick, where can people find you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. I guess the easiest way for people to find me is to go to LinkedIn. So I'm Rick Williams 100 at LinkedIn. And my website is rickwilliamsleadership.com. So it's rickwilliamsleadership.com. Those are the two easiest ways to find me.
Excellent. So Rick, what was the inspiration behind your book, Create the Future?
You know, it's a really good question. I have, first of all, a big chunk of my career was doing management consulting with Arthur D. Little, big international consulting firm, working with businesses and governments around the U.S. and to a little extent outside the U.S. And I then went on, and I'm going to answer your question, but this is sort of background to where the book came from. So I then went on to found and run a company for a number of years, and then have gone back mostly to doing my board of director work. But in the middle of all this, I've continued to do a lot of writing, leadership writing about how to be more successful as a leader of your company or any organization. And people keep saying to me, well, Rick, have you written a book? Like, okay, if you haven't written a book, why should we pay any attention to you? And as I thought about it, I said, well, okay, what do I have that really might be a unique contribution to the literature and the conversation about and as I thought about it, one of my takeaways from much of the consulting I did with Arthur D. Little was that a lot of times, in fact, many times, clients were asking us, yes, they said, well, we need you help us do some research to figure out what we should be doing about getting into this business or some problem they're dealing with. But underlying that was really help with helping them decide what they should be doing, how to actually make decisions that are very important in the life of the organization. And so this book is a leadership guidebook to making better decisions, to being more creative, using your leadership team to be more creative, and then making better decisions when you really have to get it right. So that's what this book is. It's not oh, gee, if you're doing this, do that. It's a leadership guidebook, starting with what's the real opportunity that you think you have, what would success look like, all the way through to now that you've created options for yourself, how do you decide what you're really going to do? That's what the book's about.
And I love the fact that it, I've read a lot of leadership books, and there's a number of things that will come out during this conversation, which I think are just so different from leadership books from 10 or 20 years ago. So first and foremost, you call it powerful decision-making tools for your company, yourself. This is, as you say, this is about helping people make decisions.
Yes, it's not a book saying if you have this situation, do that.
Yeah.
It's really a guidebook to encourage you to bring forth your own values. What are the values you want expressed in the decisions you're making? What is your risk profile? What kind of risk are you prepared to take or want to take when you make an important decision? What decisions you actually have to make? Let's get clear about what you actually have to decide. And then a big part of the book is saying, open yourself to hearing from others, other experiences, other ideas that may be completely contrary to your own thinking. Successful leaders are not people who say, I know what I know what to do here every time. Just do what I tell you.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, yes, the leader has to be willing to make decisions, but in truth, you will make better decisions for yourself and for your company if you say, wait a second, here's my initial thinking, but I want to hear from other people and what their contributions are. Yes, I will in the end, because it's my job, I will in the end choose where we're going to go. But I want to learn from you before I make those important decisions.
Yeah, I think that the days of leadership where it's I'm the leader, therefore I know all of the answers. We're not in those days anymore. And what we need to be doing as
Right.
leaders is actually finding out that there'll be lots of different answers, because we now have a very diverse employee base. And what we need to be doing, and this is what you say in the book, it's about you talk about defining the problem, and then also creating the options. And those creating the options, it's about the diverse views and bringing that together, isn't it?
Yes, that's exactly right. We live in such a complex world today that, yes, sometimes there are simple decisions you have to make. In fact, I hope you make decisions every single day that are maybe they're easy and you can make them without
I've got
making it too complicated. And I'm not advocating.
So there's a decision every day. What color?
Right, exactly. And but when you get down to a decision that's fundamentally important to your own life, to the life of your company or the nonprofit or a government agency, whatever it is, your leadership position, take the time. I talk about the difference between your slow mind and your fast mind in the book, developing that idea. And usually we are all making decisions instinctively with our fast mind, and we don't give our slow mind an opportunity to pause and say, okay, what really is going on here? Do we understand the underlying drivers of the challenge we're facing? Do we understand what other people might do that's going to fundamentally change anything we're trying to do that might drive the environment within which we're operating? Take time to understand all of that. And again, I'm not trying to make this super complicated. In a way, you can, this book as a guidebook with a series of leadership team exercises, encourage you to get your leadership team together and maybe a couple of key advisors, maybe outside advisors, get them together and talk about these things. Let's get everything we know on the table quickly. Let's ask ourselves, what do we know? What can we know quickly? Are there experiments we have to run? Are there discoveries we have to make? And then what are the real options we have? I talk about not just, okay, get in a whiteboard in a conference room and put ideas on the board. I say, before you do that, what are the categories of ways that we could be more do we raise prices? Do we cut our costs? Do we acquire another company that will build our resume? What are the categories of things we could do? Think about broad categories of options that you might have before trying to put lots of ideas on the whiteboard. And then be creative about the categories of solutions to the challenge or the threat or the opportunity. And then once you have opportunities on the whiteboard, talk about within each category, what are initiatives you might take. So it's that kind of structured decision-making process that this book tries to bring. And the person that I'm really trying to help with this is not the CEO of General Motors or Pratt and Whitney. Yes, every leader can use this, but it's that leader of a mid-sized and smaller organization who can't spend $500,000 and hire McKinsey or BCG or someone like me in a former life. This is giving that leader and that decision maker a structure for how they can go about dealing with an opportunity that's going to be very important for them. So it gives them some very specific exercises that their team can use to go through. And what would success look like? How do you think about success? And so that's the contribution of this book. It's really the process and tools that if you were spending a lot of money hiring a big outside consulting firm, they would be helping you go through a process very similar to this. These are the tools and process that you can use on your own or if you have can bring in a little bit of outside help, do that. But this is the basic process you can use to significantly increase the prospects of getting it right.
What I loved about the book, Rick, was the way that you step people through it very, very simply.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often you go, leadership, oh, it's a very easy book to read. And you've got these lovely cartoons,
Yes.
which are all the way through the book,
Yeah.
which immediately takes the words and brings them off the page. But you've got this; it's very easy to read. But you've also got, as I said, these illustrations, which actually then, as they bring the words to life in terms of, his my zone of leadership one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Here, which again makes the book, it's not just a dreary leadership book. It's the book is alive in terms of in what the story that you're telling.
Yeah, I thank you for saying that. I was really fortunate to have a woman who's actually in Indonesia, um, who was really instrumental in bringing the ideas forward in a way that's easy to capture visually. And I'm going to use if you don't mind, I'll use your showing that illustration to very quickly mention the zone of leadership, which is one of the chapters in the book. So the book is about how to make decisions for your organization. But the zone of leadership is a concept I develop in the book about your own professional career. That when you are operating in the area where you are most competent, and also you're most passionate about it, that overlap between your competency and your passion is your zone of leadership. And when you are take the time to understand what you're really good at and what you really care about, and find those opportunities for your own professional development where you're in that overlap, that's your zone of leadership. And when you have a job in your zone of leadership, that is the right job for you. You're also the right job, the right person for that job. If you're in a job in which you can do the job, but you're really not the right person for it, you're not in your zone of leadership. And I'll just, if you don't mind my just elaborating for another 30 seconds on this. So often you have people who are really good at running the organization. We call it the chief operating officer, COO. The person, the CEO, will retire or move on to a new position. Often the COO gets elevated up to be the CEO, whose real job is often the outside person, the person who's dealing with the external world, the customers, the investors, the media, whatever. That CEO person who is really good at that job gets put into the CEO job. And after and they say, well, of course we should do that because he really knows the company and, has all the, in fact, that company then is performing below what it should be over time because that person is really, that skill match is not the right skill match for the job of the CEO. That is a frequent mistake that is made. And anyway, so one of the chapters in the book is about helping you as a professional find your zone of leadership. And I encourage people to take a look at that because that'll be a real contribution to your own professional development.
So in terms of the I wrote down in my notebook the process that you go through in the book, which is defining the challenge, imagine success, creating the options, evaluate the barriers, and then choose the future.
Yeah. Yes. So again, this is the consultant mind think here but it's in truth valuable. It's a way of saying, okay, let's simplify a complicated problem by setting out a 5-step process. So you can say, okay, well, 5 steps, that's easy to say, define the challenge, imagine success, create options, evaluate the execution barriers, and choose the future. but in truth, that is the right way to do it. It is the right way to do it. And it may be that when you're facing a particular uh, threat to your company, it may be the real difficulty for you is only two of those steps. Maybe you sort of use the others as kind of a checklist to make sure you really got it right. Do we really understand the threat that's facing us? And yeah, we need to save this company, but then focus more on creating the options, being creative about the options, and then understanding the execution risk. And maybe that's really where you spend most of your time. But understanding the total process, the 5-step process, is how you really want to think about it from a leadership point of view. And that's what I hope I'm bringing to the leader. Understand the full process, and then you decide where you really need to focus your efforts on it with your leadership team. Because you can't go, there's like, I don't know if the number is right, of 25. There are 25 exercises that are outlined in the book. You don't want to do all 25 of them, but pick out the 3 or 4 and, set some time aside, maybe on a Saturday or something like that. Get your leadership team and say, we're just going to get away from the office. We're going to focus on these 3 issues and make sure we really get this right. That's how to
Yeah,
use
and
the
it's a
book.
very practical book in the way that you've written it, because you've got the exercises,
Yeah.
you've got all of the illustrations, and because you've got the so each you have an exercise here to actually do. So what we're doing is that
Yep.
we're learning stuff. You've got the illustration, but you then got the exercise. So, which is why I'm saying it's an easy book to read from a leadership perspective, because this is you don't go into a lot of detail. You give enough. You've got the illustration, and then you can actually test yourself and your knowledge on it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This is again, you have to put all this in a this is not intended to sit on your shelf. This is intended to be something you actually use. I find myself that I have a copy on my desk that I look at and refer to, because it in effect becomes my sort of checklist and make sure I'm really remembering all of these steps here. And that's what I did, was try to go through and each one of these sort of put down all of the, okay, if you're really trying to understand risk, what's the sort of the check questions you want to ask about risk? For instance, is failure acceptable? It may be that what you really want to do is something that is very high risk, and if it fails, it's okay because you'll have learned why it didn't work.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it may be that no, we're not going to do something here unless there's a really high probability that it will succeed. So understanding where you are in the risk profile versus whatever the benefits you hope to capture out of this is really important. That's one of the things you should be very explicit about. And that's what I'm hoping to do, that set up, in effect, your checklist of questions that encourages you to think about each one of these things as you're going through the decision-making process.
And I kind of saw the book, Rick, as one of those, and I hope you don't mind me trying to sell your books, is one of those where a leader picks it up and immediately goes, I'm going to buy this for the rest of my team.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And so, as I said, I hope you don't mind me selling your books, but it is one of those things where as a leader, you buy it and then immediately go and buy it for everybody else.
Right. Yeah, I believe it. I'm actually doing a retreat exercise in a couple of weeks with a company in Houston, Texas, that's done exactly that. They've said, okay, leadership team, we're going to get together and spend a morning on this, and I want you guys to each read the book and see how the process works and how your role in the process and how it's supposed to work. Because the CEO of this company, I want us, as what I think is a very competent leadership team, to make better decisions together, and this gives us a guidebook for doing that.
Rick, thank you so much for coming on and talking us to us about your new book, Create the Future: Powerful Decision Making Tools for Your Company and yourself. If I wanted to buy a copy, where would I go?
Well, Amazon. Well, first of all, Tim, thank you very much for having me on. And it's always fun to do these interviews because it helps me think about the book by answering your questions. And in truth, the easiest thing is to go to Amazon and buy it. You can get so it effectively comes directly from the publisher, but Amazon is where most people are buying these books. So if you go on to Amazon and just write in Create the Future and maybe write Create the Future Rick Williams, you'll get to the book.
Okay. And where can people find you?
Go to rickwilliamsleadership.com. That's my website.
Or your
there's a summary. Yeah, there's a summary
on LinkedIn.
Yeah. And LinkedIn is Rick Williams 100 on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Rick, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book. Excellent book. Really enjoyed it. And thank you for coming on and talking about it today.
Thank you, Tim.